When does it end? I want to know.
In 1940s New York, down on his luck, Stanton Carlyle endears himself to a clairvoyant and her mentalist husband at a traveling carnival. Using newly acquired knowledge, Carlyle crafts a golden ticket to success by swindling the elite and wealthy. Hoping for a big score, he soon hatches a scheme to con a dangerous tycoon with help from a mysterious psychiatrist who might be his most formidable opponent yet. Directed by Guillermo del Toro, Nightmare Alley is based on the 1946 book of the same name, written by William Lindsay Gresham. It's in theaters now, and I'm here to plead my case for you guys to go see Nightmare Alley. So guys, welcome back. What's going on? We're just a few days out from Christmas. I know everybody's busy, so the fact that you stopped by to hear me talk about a movie really means a lot. If you guys could do me a favor, like this video. It only takes a couple seconds. Just go down below, drop a like on this video. And as you guys know, I love chatting with you guys in the comments about movies. So if you've seen Nightmare Alley, drop your comments down below and let me know what you thought of it. If you plan on seeing Nightmare Alley, let me know. And what do you think about Guillermo del Toro's filmography in general? I'm really eager to talk to you guys in the comments down below. But let's go ahead and just dive into Nightmare Alley, the most recent movie from Oscar-winning director Guillermo del Toro. So guys, we are living in such a strange and bizarre cinematic universe right now, cinematic world, if you will. If you just think about this for a second, in the past 2 months, we've had movies from Ridley Scott, Steven Spielberg, and Guillermo del Toro, all of which are multiple Oscar-winning directors, some of the most, arguably some of the most talented and decorated best filmmakers in cinematic history, and all three of their most recent films have failed miserably and bombed. I grew up in a world where Steven Spielberg, Ridley Scott, and Guillermo del Toro released movies, and it was an event. Everybody rushed out to see the next movie by these filmmakers, and now we're in a world where somehow Guillermo del Toro releases a movie and it bombs and makes $3 million against a $60 million budget. I guess the only thing to blame is the industry itself, the changing industry, and people just don't go to see these smaller movies, especially movies like this, which are sort of geared toward maybe an older audience who may just not be going to the theater right now. It's sad, but it's just the way it is. Of course, opening up a smaller movie like Nightmare Alley up against a massive movie like Spider-Man may have not been the best decision. That movie is just doing gangbusters, making hundreds of millions of dollars, as we all knew it would. Movies like that has an age demographic that spans from 5 years old all the way to 100 years old. It just has a broader audience, but still, seeing that this movie in the past few days in its opening has only made $3 million is disheartening, and it's sad, but I guess that's just the way it is. So if I can convince just a handful of people to go out and see Nightmare Alley in the theater, I will have done my job as somebody who talks about movies on the internet, and that's what I'm going to do now. We're going to talk about Nightmare Alley. Let's talk about the positives, the negatives, although I don't have a lot of negatives, really just a few nitpicks. I thought this movie overall is a gorgeous, masterful work from Guillermo del Toro, and we're going to dive into that now. Let's talk about it. This movie is based on a 1946 novel by William Lindsay Gresham. That novel was also spun into a movie in 1947, although Guillermo del Toro says his movie is more based on the book, the darker elements of the book, and he doesn't consider this a remake of that movie. William Gresham, the writer of the novel, said the idea for Nightmare Alley stemmed from conversations he had had with a former carnival worker while they were both serving as volunteers in the Spanish Civil War. Now, the movie sits right at home with the rest of del Toro's filmography. While I wouldn't consider Nightmare Alley a horror movie per se, it does have all of the hallmarks that have defined his style throughout the years. Characters as outsiders begging to be seen and understood, characters who are evil and consumed with greed, preying on the innocent. Although we don't see anything actually supernatural, any ghosts, monsters, the usual fare from Guillermo del Toro, it's filled with the type of plot lines and themes that have been seen throughout del Toro's filmography and what he's been known for. Nightmare Alley is a rare throwback to an era almost 100 years ago that we just don't see anymore. A throwback to the era of these gritty noirs, the era of freak shows and geek shows and the traveling carnivals. You just don't see a whole lot of that in cinema these days, and it makes for a beautiful landscape to tell del Toro's most recent story. This is his first film that really feels grounded in the real world without relying on spooks and monsters. It truly is a sight to behold. So let's go ahead and talk about what I love about Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley. Now, first and foremost, which is probably the most obvious component, something that is usually the case pace with Del Toro's movies. This movie is absolutely marvelous to look at. Every frame is like a painting. The camera work is beautiful. The cinematography is absolutely wonderful, where every shot is filled from corner to corner with this grandiose beauty. The first half of the movie starts out in this gritty underbelly carnival world, and as Carlisle starts making more money and starts duping more and more people, growing as a mentalist in the industry, we start to see more beautiful locations like gorgeous hotels and extravagant buildings and beautiful landscapes of these amazing houses that he finds himself in, and people he gets entangled with become more elite and wealthy. It's just absolutely stunning to look at from beginning to end, and it is the first thing I noticed even from the opening moments of the movie is just how beautiful it looks. Moving on to what else I loved, this movie is absolutely epic in its scope of storytelling. A lot of times the word epic is used to describe like a sprawling period piece or some kind of medieval epic. This is just an epic in story, going from these humble beginnings of a man who commits a murder, burns down a house, buries a guy underneath the floorboards of a house, and then escapes to travel with the carnival, all the way to becoming dressed in the best clothes and duping elite and rich people. It's a huge story to be told. He covers so much ground and he takes his time to develop these characters, telling an epic story just dealing with one character's journey. It's not easy to do, and Del Toro did a fantastic job with Nightmare Alley telling this sprawling tale of an up-and-coming mentalist. The movie opens up with Bradley Cooper's character as he dumps a body underneath the floorboards of his childhood home and sets the house ablaze and takes off, is basically on the run and is in hiding from the law, and joins up with this traveling carnival, and he meets up with Willem Dafoe's character, the ringleader, so to speak, of this carnival. He starts out doing manual labor, helping set up the tents and tearing them down, packing the trucks up, but he really gets in Willem Dafoe's good graces when he helps track down and capture their escaped geek. Now, this geek aspect, this geek show, is a huge aspect of the story that isn't touched on in the trailer, but is so fascinating and so interesting. Basically, what the geek is, in reference to a carnival setting, is a person who they bill as a savage, half man, half beast. They dump into a pit and they drop a chicken in the pit, and this geek, if you will, rips the head off the chicken and drinks the blood, and the crowd goes wild. They freak out, they're repulsed, they're fascinated. It sort of reminds me of why I like horror movies. I love to be shocked, and even back then, people like to be shocked as well. But what's interesting is how these geeks are created. It's a person who usually is a homeless person or a drug addict or a severe alcoholic who is fed alcohol and fed drugs and is basically coerced into doing these things. If he drinks his nightly chicken blood, he'll get that next shot, get that next hit of opium. And it's kind of a sad tale of just debilitating addiction. And Bradley Cooper's character, Carlisle, desperately wants to avoid ever becoming a geek, so to speak, after he's so terrified of this. Bradley Cooper's character also eventually gets close with a mentalist couple. Basically what this couple does is they dupe the audience into thinking that they can predict the future, that they know things about these audience members through this little clever trick, this trap door that they have in the stage. It's all a big scam, and Bradley Cooper's character learns how to do this. He learns how to scam people into making them think that he's psychic, that he thinks this is something that he can do it bigger and grander and make more money and scam more wealthy people than just these, scumbags at a carnival. He falls in love with Rooney Mara's character, and they form this duo and take their mentalist thing on the road. But they sort of bite off more they can chew when they start getting tangled up with this rich tycoon. Bradley Cooper basically lies to him and says, I can... It sort of spins out of control into this crazy shit and this crazy ending, and it's awesome. It's a really epic story, and there's a lot going on that they can't really show you in the trailer, and it doesn't really show you how dark and the depths of, weirdness that this movie goes. So you have this amazing, sprawling story, these dark, macabre, seedy elements, carnival aspects, which is just amazing, and then you have this incredible ensemble cast. This cast is just amazing. They all work together to tell this story, and it just works so so well. The chemistry between all the characters is great, especially Bradley Cooper, who really is proving himself to be a decent character actor. He really has a lot of range, and he's fantastic in this movie. This ensemble cast itself is the main character of this movie. Now, if I had to say anything negative or just nitpick anything at all, it is the runtime is a bit long. I always harp on runtimes and editing in movies in my reviews because I think it's so important, and I also think it's the detriment of a lot of films. This movie is really top heavy, especially at the beginning, like 45 minutes towards the end of the first act, beginning of the second act. It does lag a little bit towards the middle, and I wish it would have been a little bit tightened up. But overall, this movie tells an incredible story. It's dark, it's twisted, it has a great climax, great performances, the locations, the sets, the cinematography, the production design. This movie is absolutely stunning to look at. I can't say enough good things about Nightmare Alley. I'm really sad to hear that it's not performing well. So if I in any way can convince even just a handful of people to rush out to your theater and see this movie, I highly suggest checking out Nightmare Alley. It's every bit worth your time. Don't let Spider-Man and Marvel and Batman suck up all of the box office money. Let's see some other movies do well too. Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson next movie is coming up, which is going to be amazing. We have the new Daniels movie, which who did Swiss Army Man and a couple of other amazing movies. So there's plenty of movies to go see out there other than the big Spider-Man. Spider-Man's going to be okay. Go help the movies that need your money. So, guys, with all that said, I think we're done here. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Stay weird. Remember to always be yourself, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.